Remember last year when we were all worried that AI art was going to steal our jobs? Well, now it looks like AI art isn't doing so hot after all. Hello everyone! Welcome to Art Business with Ness. I'm Ness and I'm a professional illustrator. So as you probably know, about 2 or 3 years ago, AI art really started getting better very quickly. In a matter of months, it went from creating these abstract abominations to convincing works of art, and that really had a lot of us freaked out. A lot of artists were really afraid what that was going to mean for their career, but yet here we still are, and I still have my career. Many professional artists still do, and there are new illustrators joining the field every day. So what happened? Is AI art still a threat? Well, that's why we're talking about today. Right before we get into it, if you're new here and you'd like to see more videos like this, then please subscribe to this channel and hit the little bell. It will give you a notification every time I post a new video. But without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. So there are multiple factors why AI art isn't quite such a problem as we fear it might be. First of all is that quality has stalled. I really feel like we freaked out in the beginning because of how quickly AI art was becoming better. So it wasn't so much the quality of the AI art, but the promise for how good was it going to get in the future. That was what was really scary. However, it has seemed that for a while now, the quality of AI art got severely stuck right in uncanny valley and is unable to make the step up to, artists' quality standards. Now, very recently, this month, in fact, there has been a new release of a new version of OpenAI that has a more advanced AI image generator, and users have been impressed with it, specifically how it's able to do styles. You may have seen this silly trend of people transforming photos into Ghibli style animation images. And that's been really concerning for a lot of artists. Many of us have found this disgusting as well. But the quality of these images has been very concerning. But when we look a little bit more into it, we see that there are two huge caveats to this. First of all, the algorithm is only able to do that if you're using a photo as a base. Transforming a photo into the animation helps have less mistakes and less hallucinations. Secondly, in order to reproduce this style, the AI has to be trained on a lot of Ghibli style images. And by doing this, they're really putting themselves into crosshairs for a legal challenge because Ghibli images are copyrighted. And in particular, Japan has very strict rules about copyright infringement. They don't even have fair use. So it's very possible that we are going to see a lawsuit come down from Ghibli Studio. Miyazaki in particular has been on the record saying that he believes AI art is an insult to life itself. So I can't imagine that he will see this in a kind light. This trend is only a few days old, and already it is now impossible to generate these trends because when you try, ChatGPT will tell you that it is against its content policies. The trend was very short-lived, but shone a huge bright spotlight on the fact that OpenAI has all of these Ghibli images that it's not supposed to have in order to be able to create this style. I'll talk in more detail later in the video about the mounting legal challenges against AI art, but for right now, I want to continue talking about some of the limitations of purely generative AI. So creating something from scratch, not using something else as a base, still has loads of limitations, and AI really still struggles with that. Why is that? There are a few different reasons. First of all, these AI models were built on undiscerning data scraping. They just scraped everything, the whole internet. There's a lot of bad references in there too. There's a lot of bad art, bad photographs, blurry stuff, medical records. It's just a whole mess. AI art doesn't actually create anything. They just mash together what they already have. So if they have a lot of bad quality data, they will make a lot of bad quality art. The other problem is that so much data has already been scraped already that there's a lack of high quality data remaining. In order to significantly improve these models, they would need billions more high quality images to feed the algorithm, but they're running out of stuff. Another thing that's actually really funny and really ironic is that now a lot of the stuff that's being fed back into the algorithm is bad AI art, right? All of these bad AI images that have like 12 fingers and just really weird anatomy, they get put back into the algorithm and it's worsening the source material even more. Because of this, there's now actually a lot of studies thinking that AI art is going to get worse and worse instead of better. It's also because of tools like Glaze and Nightshade that have helped us artists protect our data. Glaze kind of covers your artwork so that even if it's put into the data set, the algorithm will just read it as some kind of swirly Van Gogh and not be able to recognize your specific style. And Nightshade takes it a step even further and it poisons the data set. There's still quite few artists that use Nightshade, but I really recommend everyone to start using it because it's really not helping the algorithm, and that's good for us. Lastly, we have to remember that AI art is collage. It's not real intelligence. It's just bashing together a bunch of images. But it's not smart enough to actually understand mistakes that it's making. We've all seen these examples of hilarious and horrendous AI art examples where you have like 12 fingers and 2 left feet and bits of the core that don't attach to anything. And that's because maybe you have a bunch of image references in the data set where, the hands are kind of like this, so it looks like there's just 2 fingers. It's not smart enough to know that we're supposed to have 5 fingers. There's been so many mistakes and weird things that there's now even a new term for it: AI hallucination. That's what we call it when the output is just kind of a wild, out of nowhere mistake that no human would make, but the AI doesn't know any better. This has happened across all types of generative AI, like ChatGPT, citing fictional sources that don't actually exist. AI-powered Google searches littered with mistakes like cats like to travel through dimensions. That explains a lot. And bearded women in AI propaganda videos. It just keeps happening over and over. Recently, there's even been a new research study that has shown that hallucination is inevitable. I've read through this article and to be honest, I don't understand all of it. Some people much smarter than me have really researched this stuff and come to the conclusion that there's no way currently to fix this and that AI is always going to come up with these weird stuff. No matter how much money is poured into it, there just might be a very hard ceiling that AI art cannot get over just because it's not real intelligence. AI art has a lot of limitations. It does quite well for certain things like portraits and landscapes. It's especially good at this kind of realistic digital painting style. But it has a lot of things that it's not good at, like textures and stylization, anatomy, complex scenes, text, or overly specific requests. If there are not enough references in the data set for that thing, it's not going to come out right because there's just not enough information. So if you ask it for a rare animal or something like that, it could come up with something really wild that does not look at all like what it's supposed to look like. It also can't keep consistency between multiple images, so it's quite useless for long projects that need multiple images, such as picture books or comic books, for example. And one of the biggest problems is that you can't tweak the output easily. You just get a flat image, right? You don't have any layers. You'd have to go in and paint over it. That can be quite difficult. In order to recognize and fix those mistakes, a high level of art knowledge is required, something that the average prompter does not know. And that leads us to my next point, AI has been failing in professional contexts. It's no surprise that companies would love to be able to cut costs, and if they can use generative AI instead of having to hire a bunch of artists, they'd be happy to do so. Many have tried, but they've come to the conclusion that it's actually maybe not better to use AI art rather than real artists. We hear more and more stories of companies attempting and failing at using AI art effectively in their business. We've heard stories like studios hired AI prompters and just realized that they can't use anything that they create, that the prompters are incapable of creating exactly what's necessary for the project or making simple changes. Like if you want to change the color of an item or something, they can't do that, so it's completely useless. We've heard stories of glaring mistakes making it past quality checks, and that's just not a good look. And companies that are finding that it's actually too much work to tweak the AI output into something that's actually usable. When you fix all the mistakes and put it in the correct format and separated all the layers, have you really saved time? I even found this funny LinkedIn post in which this artist, very tongue-in-cheek, is saying that he's available if any company needs someone to fix the abomination that AI art has created. And I've definitely heard stories. There are some studios that fired artists and now they need them back. One of the things that's been really cool to see in the last months and the last years is that people are becoming able to recognize AI art, and not just artists, but just people in general, the great public. Because when you look past the surface, it's not so hard to spot the mistakes. And since the quality has stalled, then all of those things keep being relevant. I read a joke somewhere that the rules of recognizing AI art are the same rules for recognizing fairies. You count all the fingers and toes. People have learned to look in the background to spot nonsensical details, things that don't attach to anything. Weird looking paintbrush or texture that just doesn't look like real brush strokes. We also have now AI tools that can help us recognize if something is AI art or not. Now it's not 100% accurate, but still it can give us an idea at least. There's also been some examples of people being wrongly accused of making AI art just because there were some legitimate mistakes in their artwork. So, not everyone is super good at recognizing the AI art, and there's a margin for error, but people are definitely on the lookout, and some pieces of AI art are really easy to recognize. AI art definitely has this look to it, right? It's like the AI art style, and increasingly that's seen as not a good thing. That's the next point I want to talk about. But just before we jump into it, I would love to hear from you. Are you personally worried about AI art? And have you felt some effects of this on your own art business or art career? Please go in the comments below and let me know. So, perception of AI art. That has been one of the most interesting things that I've seen develop over the last few years. The public perception of AI art has been very negative, and that's really important. Companies that have been discovered to use AI art have been completely bashed. For example, when Wacom was caught using AI on one of their packaging, they got so much criticism that they immediately backed down and apologized. They claimed that that was an accident and they had used AI stock images without knowing. Wacom makes tablets for artists, right? So they got especially bad with the backlash. Artists were not happy. But we've seen that even companies that have nothing to do with artists are also getting backlash. AI art is getting this stigma. It's seen as not only unethical, but just cheap, right? I was reading an article about books written by ChatGPT, and I saw a great comment that said, why would I take time to read something that the author didn't even take the time to write? And that really summarizes kind of the perception of AI. It's just like, it's so cheap. It's something that companies do to just still decline again and again the quality of our goods. And that's just especially discouraging because prices are going up for everything. we're paying more and we're getting a crappier product. People are mad about this. They see that they pay more and the quality is declining. So whenever they spot AI art on the product, they're like, why is this so expensive? You didn't even have to pay the artist, but you want me to pay more? It's really seen as greedy. Now, there are still lots of great companies that have never even considered AI art because they really value high quality and uniqueness. But even those companies who don't care, who would use AI art if it was good enough, still can see the potential downsides of using AI art now because it's just not worth the PR nightmare. And if it's so obvious that AI art has been used, they know that people will not buy it. On the other hand, sales of actual artwork are actually doing pretty well in most markets. For example, I'm in surface design, and many surface designers were really worried about AI art and how that was going to affect things. But what I've seen is in the past year, especially in the past few months, sales have been doing great. At my agency, we get art calls every single week from big companies like Walmart, TJX, Hobby Lobby, Target, etc. All of these big companies are buying art from real artists. Real art is still very much in demand. And then also, we have to talk about the legal challenges because that's another big part of all of this. The law is always very slow to catch up to new technology, but it does catch up. And in the last few years, we've seen legal challenges start to pop up. For example, the Copyright Office officially ruled a couple of years ago that AI art cannot be copyrighted. And this is really huge for companies because many of them, they need to own the copyrights in order to not be copied by others. They want to have a unique product, so they want to own the copyright. Even bigger than that, the US House Judiciary Committees now have had several sessions hearing different arguments against AI art, AI music, AI videos, as well as deepfakes. And we've seen that legal challenges are coming from multiple angles, right? For example, from the rich music industry. Even though AI music is something a little bit different than what we're worried about AI art, still, it's all the same kind of technology, and any ruling or new laws against any kind of generative AI can help us set a precedent that will apply to other kinds of AI too. We've also seen there's currently a big copyright infringement lawsuit in progress against Stable Diffusion. This was brought by our artist champion against AI, Carla Ortiz, and this has been in the news for a while, but as we know, lawsuits move very slowly. Still, artists have scored a major win already. In August 2024, the court refused Stable Diffusion's request to dismiss the lawsuit, and they in fact allowed the lawsuit to move forward. So this is going to be something to keep our eyes on. So we will have to see where that goes. But AI is really right now in that space of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can either feed a lot of copyrighted images into the algorithm in order to improve the image output, but then put themselves at risk of a legal challenge, or just let the quality stall. And then it won't be high enough that anyone actually wants to use it. So lastly, I want to end on, if you are worried about AI art, what do we do, right? What do we do about this? The first thing that I recommend is to lean into your own unique style. As I've mentioned before, AI art has a very specific flavor to it, like we can recognize it, right? It can't easily do all of the art styles. It's not very good at many of them. So anything that makes you unique is something that you want to lean into. Also, lean into the handmade feel quality of your artwork. Let us see the brushstrokes. Make it a little bit wonky, right? So that it feels hand-drawn. Don't try to make it too perfect. I've seen in the last few years that these kinds of art styles that have textures, that are a bit gritty, where we can feel the hand of the artist, have been very popular. And I've always said that I think the advancing of AI art is going to create a counterculture movement where people go back to the basics and want to buy handmade things, originals, things like that. You can't beat AI art at its own digital thingy that it's doing, but you can do your own thing that's completely different from that. I also really recommend to lean into higher quality rather than quantity, because quantity is something that AI art can do really well, right? You just put in a prompt and you get 20 images, but it struggles with the quality. So if you put your effort there, sure, you work much more slowly. You can only create one piece of artwork maybe in a couple of weeks or in a month, but that one piece of artwork will be fabulous. And that's what you want to lean into. We're also not completely at the mercy of AI. There are things that we can do now to protect ourselves. If you haven't been using Glaze or Nightshade, I highly recommend it. They are free tools and they can help cloak and protect your artwork and even poison the data set. Any social media platforms that you're on, or even the platform where you host your website, make sure to check all of the settings, because now there's a lot of things that we can do to opt out of being scraped by AI. Sometimes it's like a little box that you have to check to opt out. That's also a way that you can protect your images and your data. And then of course, you can be a part of helping make new laws for AI art. So call your representatives, let them know that this is important to you. And lastly, keep making your art. Keep doing what you're doing. I see a lot of artists that get so discouraged by AI art, they don't even want to do art anymore. Never let anyone discourage you. Art is your passion, it's in your blood, it's what you do. Keep doing that. I really hope that this was helpful and that you enjoyed this discussion. If you're interested in keep putting your art out there, I have a free guide that you might like. It's called 7 Surprising Ways to Find Illustration Clients. It's completely free and I will leave the link to that in the description below. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help our small channel grow. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!